If you have not watched the other parts, please watch those before you watch this one. Hey guys, welcome to part 8 of this series. Sorry for being so late. I've been busy with schoolwork. Anyways, please enjoy this part. To start off this part, we're going to do an origin story for the Hal Jordan version of the Green Lantern. So, to start the movie off, we start on the planet Oa. We see the Lanterns training and showing off their powers. We see Hal and Kilowog acting like brothers as they train. When someone flies down to the planet's surface, he says that John Stewart failed to come back from the mission alive. That's when we hear Hal's voice scream out, "You're a murderer, Sinestro." Kilowog tries to hold Hal back, but he is unable to, and Hal gets in Sinestro's face and tells him, "You should have protected him." Sinestro says that as a Lantern, you must control your emotions, especially fear, because fear can easily overwhelm your willpower and maybe, even worse, free parallax. Hal then takes off his ring and says, "Well, maybe I'm not meant to be a Lantern," and asks to be taken home. We then flash forward to present day in Coast City at Ferris Airline. We see a picture on a wall of a guy being looked at by Hal with tears in his eyes. A woman approaches him and asks if he is okay. He says he's fine, and that the man in the picture is his father. The girl looks at him with almost tears in her eyes now. She whispers, "Hal?" He looks at her shocked and calls her Carol. They hug each other, and Carol asks him why he's there. Hal says that he finally got out of school to become a pilot, and he has an interview with her father. That's when Carol's father, Carl Ferris, comes out and asks Hal if he is ready to start the interview. The interview goes great because Mr. Ferris knows about Hal having all of his willpower to continue in life even after his father's death. After the interview, Hal asks Carol if she would like to go with him to celebrate him getting the job. She agrees to go on a drive with him. Carol and Hal are enjoying each other's company when there's a huge explosion right in front of the car, and the force of blast causes Carol to hit her head on the windshield, knocking her out. Hal checks Carol's pulse to make sure that she was alive. Once he knows that she is okay, Hal goes to see what causes the explosion. He goes into the crater and sees someone getting out of some kind of ship. He asks the person if they are alright. The person, who Hal is now realizing has red skin, says that their name is Admin Sir, and he is part of the 2814 sector of the universe in the Green Lantern Corps. Hal says that he doesn't want any part of the Green Lantern team anymore after the death of John Stewart, before he could even go on his first mission as some space cop. Besides, he has to go and make sure that Carol gets to a hospital to get some treatment for her injuries. That's when Abin picks Carol up inside of a green bubble by using his ring and places her in his ship. Hal asks him what he's doing with Carol. Abin explains that he has taken her back to the planet Oa since it's his fault that she's hurt. Abin tells Hal that he can come with Carol if he wants, but if he does, he must be a Green Lantern again and fight the upcoming war between the Lanterns and the Zimmerons. Hal says that he will continue to be a Lantern, but only to protect Carol, so he reluctantly agrees to go. When Hal, Abin, and Carol get to Oa, they take Carol to the medical portion of the planet. Hal is walking around the planet as he waits for her to get better. He sees Kilowog after all these years and goes to talk to him. Kilowog doesn't want to speak to Hal because he feels like he was left behind when Hal went back to Earth. However, Kilowog can't help but smile after Hal keeps bugging him, just like a little brother. He mentions to Kilowog that the only reason he's there is to help Carol, and that's the only reason. That's when the conversation gets interrupted by Sinestro. Sinestro says that isn't a good enough reason to be a Lantern, especially for someone who has already left the Lanterns once before. Hal says that Sinestro is the reason that he left in the first place, since he killed John. Sinestro says that John disappeared after the mission on Mars was completed. Hal then whispers to himself, "Murder." But he makes sure that Sinestro could hear him. Sinestro then yells that he may have accidentally killed in the past, but John wasn't one of the people he killed. Sinestro then continues by saying that he doesn't understand why he's having this conversation with Hal, because he doesn't know anyone important that wants Hal on Oa. That's when the argument is interrupted by Abin Sur and says that he heard everything and that what Sinestro is saying about the importance of Hal is completely false. That is because the creators of the Green Lantern Corps, the Guardians of the Universe, have seen a version of the future when Hal uses his willpower to become one of the strongest Lanterns that has ever lived. Sinestro doesn't believe what he's hearing. That's when Abin says that the Guardians has also made it where Sinestro will be the one to train Hal, just like before. That's when both Hal and Sinestro get upset, and they say that it will never work like it did. Abin just shrugs his shoulders and says that the Guardians have spoken, but if anything goes wrong, he and Kilowog will be there to help smooth over the problem. That's when we see a montage of Sinestro and Hal trying to work together, and it seems that their past relationship is being shown just a little bit. Once the montage ends, Hal is trying his best with one of the hardest things that the Green Lantern must do. Abin and Kilowog are trying to convince Hal that he can do it, and then there's Sinestro, who is just sitting back watching Hal fail. It seems that Hal is about to prove Sinestro right and quit again. That's when they get word that Carol has been taken from the med bay. The four lanterns go to where Carol was taken, and some of the other lanterns that were there say that she was taken by the Zimmerons. Hal asks where they went, and after he knows, the four lanterns follow the Zimmerons' trail, even though Hal is reluctant to let Sinestro go as well. The lanterns start to go to all these different planets, trying to find where Carol and the Zimmerons went to. With every planet that they go to, they help someone as a galactic police force. After a couple of planets, lanterns finally find the Zimmerons. The Zimmerons try to tell something to the lanterns, but Hal just sees Carol's body laying behind the Zimmerons. This causes Hal to get angry and to instantly attack the Zimmerons. During the fight, Hal is having a hard time, but then he finally finds the willpower to complete that hardest task and uses it to knock out the Zimmerons. That's when one of the Zimmerons tries to plead with Hal and the lanterns by saying that they did nothing wrong. All they wanted was to have a willing leader. Hal yells that Carol wasn't willing to go with him. Carol then gets up and says that Hal is wrong. She explains that she was willing to go because there is nothing left on Earth. Plus, these Zimmerons never wanted to fight the Green Lanterns, but instead work with them because they sense a huge war coming to the universe between the returning fear of the Yellow Lanterns and the willpower of the Green Lanterns. Hal asks her why she can't stay on Earth. She says that her father is dying, and there is no way that she would be able to run the airline, even if she was even given the rights to own it. So, when she heard about what the Zimmerons were trying to do, and that they needed a leader, she accepted the offer. Hal asks why she was still knocked out. Carol explains that she was healed from her wounds by the Zimmeron technology, but the effects of the process to become the leader of the Sapphire Corps, Sapphire, can be quite tiring. But Hal doesn't need to worry, because she is happy with the decision, and she will make sure that the new Sapphire Corps won't use their powers for hate, but to instead spread love across the universe. That is when the two corps go their separate ways. When they get to Oa, Abin pulls Hal aside and said he's worried about him because he got angry with no thought when he saw Carol. If his ring no longer represented green for willpower, but red for anger, then it might be dangerous for the whole universe. That's when they approach the Guardians of the Universe. The Guardians say that with Hal's determination and willpower to help his friend, he has been approved to stay on Earth if he promises to come back to Oa when he is asked to do so. Hal agrees. The movie ends with Carol and Hal going to Mr. Ferris's funeral, and after they get alone to say their goodbyes, Carol says that she left a gift for Hal at the airline. When Hal gets there, he sees that the sign has been changed. The Ferris Jordan Memorial Airline. Someone comes and gives him some papers that reveals to him that he is the new owner of the airline. The post-credit scene is Sinestro revealing to Abin Sur that he killed John Stewart. Then he kills him before he can react. He then goes to a prison cell on the planet, and as his ring and suit starts to turn yellow, he says that he will free you. Parallax. The next movie is the finale to the Aquaman series. The movie starts with Black Manta and Aquaman fighting and Arthur winning. He asks Manta why he keeps living this kind of lifestyle after the truce with the Luthor incident. Manta says that Arthur will never understand until he has a child. That is because Arthur didn't just kill Manta's father, but also his son's Kaldurum's grandfather. Manta explains that as soon as he met his son and had one conversation with him, he fell in love. He realizes that what he did was wrong, but at the time, there was no other option. Arthur says that there is always an option, and he will make sure that his son is found and taken care of. Arthur uses telepathy by listening to the sound of the currents to find Kal-Dorum. A couple of years pass, and Kal-Dorum has gotten permission to go on his first mission with Aquaman. However, Kal-Dorum doesn't return, and Arthur is forced to leave Atlantis to go find him. Arthur fails to find him. Meanwhile, while Arthur is gone, Atlantis is attacked by unknown enemies. The leader of the new group introduces himself as the Dead King, also known as King Atlan. Some of the Atlanteans are shocked to hear his name because they all thought he was dead. Atlan says that he has come back to life into Atlantis to rule as king once more, and if anyone opposes him, they will be automatically killed with no questions asked. That's when Aquaman shows up, and he says that he is king, and the true king will never let any of his people be killed. Atlan says that sometimes sacrifices have to be made. This causes the two to fight, and Aquaman gets the upper hand when someone hits him. It is revealed to be Kal-Dorum. Atlan says that he understands that Kal-Dorum used to be Aquaman's trainee, but after years of being in Atlan's world, Kal-Dorum's mind has been set free of all the ways that Arthur has taught him. Arthur doesn't understand how any of this is possible because he just saw Kal-Dorum this morning. Atlan explains that time works differently in his domain. So, with it being one afternoon in Atlantis, it will actually be 5 years for Kal-Dorum. Kal-Dorum then holds Arthur down, while Atlan says that anyone who joins Arthur can, but they must leave their homes and loved ones, or they can stay in Atlantis under his rule as king. Half of the population in Atlantis goes with Arthur, while the other half stays in Atlantis. The half with Arthur are asking him why he didn't try to fight harder. Arthur explains that he did try to fight as much as he could, but he would never fight Kal-Dorum since he is one of their own. Arthur says that he has an idea that could work with Kal-Dorum. Arthur goes out to find Black Manta. Once they do find Manta, Arthur is able to convince him to come back to Atlantis to save his son. With Mantis' help, they are able to free Kal-Dorum from the effects of Atlan. After this is completed, Arthur, Manta, and Kal-Dorum work into freeing the other half of the Atlanteans and taking down Atlan in the process. The movie ends with Kal-Dorum free of his mind control, living with Manta, and still training with Aquaman. Post-credit scene for Aquaman 3 takes place on a planet, and it shows a big purple guy standing in front of some sort of council, and he's trying to persuade them to attack a sister planet. However, they say that they don't agree with his methods, UX. The final movie of this part is Man of Steel 3. The movie starts off right after the post-credit scene of Justice League 2. The woman picks up Clark and flies him out to space. They land on a small rock floating around. The girl gives Clark to a group of people and says that they need to be taken to get his injuries taken care of so he can be waking up as soon as possible. They say right away, Miss Zor-El. She goes to his bedside, waiting for this new technology to work on Clark. That is when another woman walks beside her and asks if she thinks this plan will work. Kara says that it has to, because if it doesn't, we all know that he will fight Brainiac once he finds out. That's when Clark wakes up and he is super confused because he doesn't know where he is or what's going on. The women explain that they are Kryptonian, just like him, and they are even related. Kara says that she is his cousin. Then the other woman introduces herself as Laura L. and Clark's mother, and they are on the last remaining piece of Krypton called Argo City. Clark asks how all these Kryptonians were able to survive the planet being destroyed, because as far as he knew, he was the last one left. Kara says that the only reason Argo City survived the attack was because her father had enough power to put a force field around the city, but not the whole planet. Sadly, he died before we could find you so you could meet him. Clark then asks about his father. Laura says that he died in the battle for Krypton and couldn't make it to safety. Kara says that thankfully they were able to find him and they could be happy together finally. Clark asks about his family and friends on Earth, which Kara says that isn't there already enough heroes on Earth? Even if one hero left, would it even matter? This convinces Clark, only for a little bit. As Clark is spending more and more time in Argo, the feeling of something being wrong becomes greater. As he is helping a local Kryptonian out with work, he hears the name Brainiac. After some research, he finds out that it was Brainiac that destroyed Krypton and that he has been putting different planets into bottles to learn more about their culture. He goes to confront Kara and Lara about it. Kara says that what he heard was correct, but there's no need to worry, because since the attack, Kryptonians have been working with Brainiac to stay alive by giving him artifacts for their planet. Clark doesn't believe his ears, because he would have fought Brainiac, even if it was a lost cause. He tries to convince them to help, but Lara is not listening to him. Kara, on the other hand, feels for Clark, and he could tell just by looking at her how she feels. He asks if Kara knows anything. She says that she overheard that his next target is Earth, and with Lara trying to keep her quiet, Kara says that his weakness is any type of bacteria, making it into his body. Clark flies through the Earth's atmosphere just in time to stop Brainiac. Clark is struggling against Brainiac because there is no bacteria in space. Brainiac has taken out the bottle that he plans to put Earth in when Kara shows up to help Clark. She says that there is no reason for another civilization to die out when there are people who can fix things. The two Kryptonians work together to stop Brainiac, who no longer has the bottle. Clark says to follow him because he knows where to put him. They punch him down to the Earth's surface into a swamp. The bacteria in the swamp eat Brainiac inside out, killing him. Clark and Kara releases all the planets that Brainiac held. They then fly back to Argo. Lara thanks the two of them for stopping Brainiac, even if she didn't see that it had to be done. And Clark can visit anytime he wants to, because even though the Kryptonians are his kind of people, they are not his family. The people on Earth are. Clark hugs her and says that he will always love her. He looks over at Kara and says, "Do you want to come as well?" Kara smiles and says, "Race you there," and the two fly off. The movie ends with the two flying in space, and Clark looks at the camera and just smiles and flies off. The first post-credit scene is Clark and Kara landing in front of the Kent farm, with Clark saying, "And that's why you need glasses and to change your name." That's when Martha, Kent, and Lois Lane run out to hug him. He introduces them to Kara. That's when Perry White walks out of the house. He changes to his Martian form and says that they did a good job stopping one invasion, but there is another one coming, and he's much darker than anyone else has faced. The second post-credit scene is a man coming across some of Brainiac's technology in the swamp and saying, "I have what you need for Project Camnus, Mr. Luthor." Thanks for watching part 8. Again, I'm so sorry for being so behind, but please like, comment, and subscribe.